Good evening, guys, and welcome to the January 23rd, 2024 business meeting. Can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are joined by 5 of our trustees, our superintendent of schools, Dr. Timothy Harney, our assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction, Mr. Robert Haas, our interim assistant superintendent for finance and operations, Mr. Luis Fronterio, our district legal counsel, Mr. Sophia Terrasi, our district clerk, Mr. Zambonetti, and our student rep, Alexander Palacios. There are 2 opportunities for the community to participate during the Board of Ed meeting. The first is just before the board takes up its agenda, and the second follows disposition of all agenda items. If you'd like to speak, we ask that you come to the podium. We ask that you must be a resident or an employee of the school district. Any other person must be authorized by a majority vote of the board. For the convenience of the community, as always, all of the meetings are live streamed and posted thereafter to board docs. And if you want to follow the district on Instagram, you can follow us at BBP School District. On Facebook at Bayport Blue Point School District. On X, you can follow Dr. Harney at BBP Soup or the school district at BBP Schools. At this time, we'll turn it over to Dr. Harney to recognize our outstanding Teacher of the Month.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller. I'm going to just do a couple of quick announcements, and then I'm actually going to turn it over to Mr. Haas, who's going to recognize our Teachers of the Month tonight. Just real quick, just at the elementary schools, we have the Elementary Great Kindness Challenge Week, so that's something that they're working on this week. If you remember also, at the end of the first quarter, we had generated the BBP Scoop, which is kind of an SEL newsletter that we sent out. We're trying to do 1 a quarter, so that one will be coming out at the end of this week for you, so for the second quarter. And also just a quick thing is where winter sports are starting to head into the playoffs. You may have heard our girls track have just recently won the leagues. And you probably had seen on social media that 4 of our girls in the 4x800 set the record for the United States, which is pretty impressive. We'll bring them at some point to recognize them. So, and that was done at an invitational, so now they are moving on to the county, so we will get them at some point. So with that, and also just a quick thing, which I'm sure Allie will talk about in a little bit, just a reminder that we have the musical coming up here at the high school, so get your tickets. Obviously, that will be a great show. But saying that, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Haas, who is going to recognize some of our teachers, so congratulations to them, and thank them for all that they are doing. So with that, I turn it over to you, Mr. Haas.
Thank you, Dr. Harney. It is with great pleasure that I get to recognize these tremendous teachers, the Bayport Blue Point School District. This is always one of the highlights for us at board meetings to honor these special individuals. The first one that we are recognizing from the month of September, she's not here, but I did want to recognize her. We will call her back to a later meeting, and that is Nicole Sabin, the Teacher of the Month for the month of September. Next up, we have Teacher of the Month for the month of October. I could see her anxiously sitting there in the audience right now. And this was, I do want to recognize who it was submitted by as well, who wrote up for them. So this was submitted by her colleague, Carly Gare. And I'm going to read you a little bit of what was written about her in the submission. This teacher is the epitome of hardworking, passionate, dedicated, and exceptional educator in the Bayport Blue Point schools. She's a speech therapist who voluntarily moved to Blue Point Elementary School in the 2022-23 school year to continue her career and to bring her enthusiasm, creativity, and professionalism to a new group of students, teachers, and staff. She did not hesitate to be a part of and a spark, some would say a firework, in the culture of Blue Point Elementary. She ambitiously and instantly jumped into being a positive influence in her new building, just as she has done for so many years at Sylvan Avenue. She brings a positive vibe and immeasurable care to the Blue Point Elementary School. Her Veterans Day activities are meticulously planned to allow the Blue Point Elementary students and staff to understand the holiday and to express gratitude and honor for the brave men and women of our country. One thing that really stood out to me in reading this, what was nominated, was her enthusiasm, honesty, passion, patriotism, love of family, home and work family, dedication to making life better, and her incredible ability to make big and small moments meaningful is a worthy recognition for her to be nominated and recognized as the Teacher of the Month. So for the Teacher of the Month of October, I bring up Christine Monahan. There was something mentioned about her high heels, but I didn't hear it, so I apologize. For the Teacher of the Month for the month of November, it was submitted by Stephanie Birdsall, and we have Christina Law. Our November Teacher of the Month is a veteran teacher with an incredible work ethic. She is extremely detail-oriented and a marvel of organization. When one enters her classroom, it is really apparent that the students feel comfortable, safe, and cared for in a nurturing environment that she provides. Any child placed in her class is extremely lucky. She truly cares about her students and maintains a strong home-to-school connection for all of her students in her class. This year, she has a new colleague on her grade level team and has gone above and beyond to welcome her, selflessly giving her time both in and out of the school to offer support and guidance. She is an absolute asset to Sylvan Avenue Elementary School and the Bayport Blue Point School District. I bring up the Teacher of the Month for the month of November, Christina Law. Congratulations. Next, for our Teacher of the Month for the month of December, it was submitted by Kim Felice, and we have Jessica Armstrong. Our December Teacher of the Month is one of our own here in the middle school. She is a kind, compassionate, and reliable teacher, colleague, and a friend. She goes above and beyond for her students. Her positivity is contagious, and she seems to always take whatever she is handed in stride. Many of you may not be aware of how much she actually does for our school outside of her science classroom. She has provided our 8th graders with a memorable experience up at Frost Valley. She is also the 8th grade advisor, cooking club co-advisor, and mentor for anyone who is looking to start a club. But what truly sets her apart is her ability to connect with her students on a personal level. She goes beyond the curriculum, taking the time to understand each student's strengths, challenges, and aspirations. In doing so, she creates an environment where students feel seen and heard. Our Teacher of the Month for December is Jessica Armstrong. Congratulations, Ms. Armstrong. And finally, for the month of January, we have Tina Nadim, submitted by Melissa Torres. This month, Bayport Blue Point High School would like to recognize a person who is known for creating a welcoming, accepting, and friendly atmosphere in her classes. She ignites passion for her art in her students and then shows them how they can pursue it beyond high school. She is an incredible professional role model to her students. Art isn't just her career, it's her passion, and she has been recognized for her own artwork. She has built a reputation for being a go-to person for many students as well as her colleagues. In her room is seen as a safe space where students can go to find support and inspiration for the creative ventures. Colleagues know they can depend on her for a listening ear, innovative perspectives, and ideas. The Teacher of the Month for the month of January, Tina Nadim. Congratulations, Mr. Deem, and all of our Teachers of the Month.
Just real quick before we send everyone home, we'll go to our student rep for her update, and then we'll send everyone home if you'd like to go.
Sure, thank you. This week at Academy Street, this past week, the Bayport Blue Point High School students joined the fifth graders to teach science lessons and walk them through a science investigation. Also, today was the Academy Street Spelling Bee, and the students were very impressive spellers. Also, this week at all three of the elementary schools is the Great Kindness Challenge. So Academy Street kicked off their kindness challenge. Each day they're celebrating and spreading kindness in different ways. Also, bingo night is on Thursday, so that's fun. At Blue Point this week they started the Great Kindness Challenge by doing hats off to kindness and participating in a parade around the school, and they will end in flexing their kindness by wearing workout clothes. The students are also working on their kindness checklists in school and at home. Also, Miss Velasco and the fifth grade would like to thank Seed for purchasing books of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory to read, and for sending the fifth graders to the Wonka movie at the Sayville Movie Theater at the end of the week. At the middle school, congratulations to the Middle School Science Olympiad students who had a tremendous start to their season, with numerous students who placed and received medals at the Blue Dragon Invitational this past weekend. Also, congratulations to the National Junior Honor Society on their work during the toiletry drive. They were able to donate many toiletry items to those in need at the Patchogue Neighbors Inn. Also, the middle school play has been announced, and they'll be performing Willy Wonka Jr. And you can now visit the JWIMS website for information regarding the audition dates. Finally, at the middle school, they will be welcoming Lloyd Backrack on Thursday to speak with their 6th and 7th graders. He competed in the 1996 Paralympics and has a very inspiring story to share with the staff and students. Finally, at the high school, Regents exams were today, tomorrow, and the 25th for some of our students. We are also looking to get students involved with creating leadership activities, opportunities, and discussions. Anyone interested should see Mr. Nolan. Also, the Long Island Business Aviation Association would like to connect any students who are interested in careers as pilots, mechanics, and other aviation-related careers. And finally, next Tuesday, Mr. Gary McGuey from the Franklin Covey Institute will be coming to speak with us for an assembly on Leadership is a Choice. Finally, Friday is the end of the second quarter. Woo! Also, sorry. Also, congratulations to Ava and Ansley Brogan, Maddie Jensen, Sophia McGinnis for becoming #1 in the country for their 4x8 race. Also, the high school musical is Cinderella, and it's coming up. It's February 8th, 9th, and 10th, and you can come see me and a bunch of my very amazing classmates. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. But at this time, if anybody would like to leave, we definitely understand. Again, congratulations to the Teacher of the Month. We truly appreciate everything you do. And how about one more round of applause for these guys? You definitely can stay, but don't feel like you have to. But at this time, we'd open it up to the community members for any new or old business. Anybody like to come to the mic? Not hearing any, we'll turn it over to our superintendent for his report. Dr. Harney, how are you tonight?
Thank you very much. So where we are right now in the program is Mr. Frontario and myself are going to give one of our budget presentations. So we'll go into that. Mr. Frontario will do the first couple of slides, then I'll pick up a little bit, and then we'll hand it back off to him. So, Mr. Frontario, if you want to get us started. people use,
They can hear you?
good, yeah. Oh, the video?
Yeah, the video.
Okay, so really what they did is they did two things. They did, you'll see the first term up there, save harmless. Some people also refer to it as hold harmless, just so you know. So just so you're aware, when you see those two words, they're kind of somewhat interchangeable. So in the past, there was a provision within the foundation aid that basically said that districts from year to year would retain the same amount of foundation aid with some type of minimal increase. And probably over the last couple of years, you've heard me up here basically say, we have received the minimum and we've been status quo, or they've added a little bit. Usually it was somewhere between 2 and 3%, all right? So that was something that was always in place. That provision has been changed for this year. That is a big part. So within Suffolk County, there were 39 districts out of 65 that basically were part of this, okay? So really what happened is they removed that part. So now you see there was no guaranteed minimum included. So that's the first thing. The second thing, which I'm not going to really go into all the math to it, but it's the inflation factor. And it is something, as you read some of the things you may have seen in the paper, you may have seen this. The governor's budget lowers the inflation adjustment to the standard per pupil amount. If the current law, if we were to follow what we were currently doing, okay, there would have been a call for a 4.1 inflation factor based on monthly changes in the consumer price index, CPI, over 2023. What the budget did, or what the change was, the governor's budget uses a 2.4% over a 10-year period, getting rid of the two outliers, the highest and the lowest. So that's how that rate comes up. That, again, has an impact. What does that all mean for Bayport Blue Point? So I'll take you through that a little bit. So what it means for Bayport Blue Point, if you're looking at these numbers up here, so if you're thinking about it, and you saw the paper last week, I'm going to kind of walk through some of the numbers for you. Often when you're thinking about aid that is given to districts, you look at two things. You look at foundation aid, and I often refer to foundation aid as money that there are really no strings attached. It's one piece of revenue that I would say for districts. That's one revenue that you usually count on every single year as you're going from the state. The other piece is obviously the tax base, right? Because that is another piece where you're looking at the tax levy, and that's another piece of revenue for districts. Everything else kind of fluctuates, but let's just keep it to foundation aid. So our foundation aid number, if you're looking up here in the right-hand corner, has been, we were less than 1.159 million. That's a lot of money when you're talking about any school district. For a school our size, that is a tremendous amount of money. What you may have also seen is part of the discussion that you may have read about or heard about is they go, well, you might have seen this number in the paper that says, no, the district was really short 599 or whatever it was. You might have seen that number. I would argue with that number. The reason I would argue with that number is what the difference is they're saying, well, you did receive more in what they call categorical aid, which is like transportation, building aid, aid from BOCES, purchases you make. So what I would say is, well, the reason, yes, our aid did go up in that area, but for it to go up in that area, which is a good thing, it is a good thing, but for it to go up in that area means the district had expended more. Because remember, we talk about you get a % of different, whether it be your building aid or your BOCES aid or transportation aid, everything carries a different percentage. So that's one. Two, the other thing that I would argue here is if they're going to say this is the number that was reported in the paper, they're counting money for UPK. We don't have a full UPK program, so we do not receive all that aid. So therefore, if I were to say, if really strictly to look at it, I still think the number is the 1.159. I truly believe that in terms of what we were short, because that is the money with no strings attached to it. But if you weren't going to go there, then I would say, okay, it's the 691, because the 691 number that you see there has to do with, we basically took out the UPK. So the 599, then we took out the UPK aid that we would not get, and that's why it really became a deficiency of 691, if that makes sense to you. I'm going to just take a quick stop there if anyone has any questions, because then I'm going to take you to one more slide. But that kind of explains the foundation aid. So when I said before is 39 districts were short or were received less this year is really what I should say. Received less this year than they did last year in foundation aid. And it ranged from a school district to the west of us of about $1,000 to a district north of us, if you went into the paper, about $8 million. So it ranged very much. We were, I think, within the top 10 in terms of that number that was there. So that is a number that we are obviously concerned. With that, we've already reached out to our local politicians and that, and everyone is going to be fighting for that to change. The hard part about that is in a budget cycle, I'm going to walk you through this in the next slide. The budget doesn't really get adopted until April 1st. We have to adopt a budget by April, mid-April, whatever it may be. So that becomes a concern for us as we're trying to do some planning. So this becomes a piece. So you understand just the process a little bit. And I'm not going to go into all this, but the governor's executive budget is due the second Tuesday following the day of the annual meeting of the legislature, which is exactly what happened. It came out last Tuesday, it was January 16th. That's what happened. There is an exception to that, but that doesn't apply here, so I'm not going to worry about that. The thing that did happen as you're watching this and you're thinking about this, okay, is by law, they have to put out a balanced budget. So nothing was wrong in terms of what they did. It's just where the money is allocated. That's really what happens. The budget itself, by law, has to be balanced. And they are predicting a $6.8 billion deficit by the year 2028. So therefore, they have to create this budget with a balance in mind. And as I said, really, my discussion is merely more where it's allocated. That becomes that part. All right. They have now a grace period of 30 days where they can do a 30-day amendments to anything. From what I'm hearing is I do not think any of that will change. I think that will all stay the same. And then it basically has to be binding by 3/1 or else March 1st, or then the comptroller steps in, and that's what they do. All right. What happens now is now that the executive budget is put forward, and this is the process that's been in place was in place many, many years ago. You have basically between these dates, there'll be the budget hearings. So right now, anytime I've reached out to a number of our senators and our assemblymen, and all of them are up in Albany right now, and they're up in Albany for this exact reason, for these legislative hearings, okay? So then what comes out, it's one House budget, and we should have changed that. It's probably going to come around mid-March, okay? So that becomes the one House budget, which is, our legislators. Then they start to talk about a reconciliation of the one House budget. Then there's a negotiation that happens every single year. And then the budget adoption is really March 31st, or April, really it's by April 1st. So that is the process when you're looking at really what we're working with as a district and our timeline. So that's what I say is we may get some inkling around middle March of what the one House budget what will look like. My guess is they would be asking to restore the foundation aid, maybe put a percentage on top. That does not mean that that's what we are going to get. Usually then it goes into that negotiation phase. And then by April 1, you hope that a budget is adopted. But if you recall, last year it was May 10th. Okay, so all of that plays into this as you're thinking about this. So I just kind of wanted people to understand the process and why so many districts, when it came to the foundation aid formula, things look very different this year. And it's basically because of those two provisions that I told you that they had changed. And we're still gathering more and more information because this is basically 6 days old right now. So that's what we're trying to figure out. So I'll take any questions on that part, and then I'm handing it off to Lou, who's really going to start going through the budget. But I will caution you, as he's going through the budget and he's showing you increases and stuff, since this has happened, we are going to go through the entire thing again now. So it's just, we're following our calendar because that's what we put out. But now we have to kind of really take a look at every single budget code that there is. So that's what we will do. And we will plan for the worst and hope for the best. That's what we will do. Questions at all?
Any questions from trustees? Any questions from community members about that topic? Thank you, Dr. Arnott.
All right, with that, I'll turn it over to Lou.
Now that I heard, it still works, right? Okay. So I promised I would get back to the board and the community on my last presentation back on January 9th, where I presented the tax levy limit, the tax cap calculation, and at the moment, it has not changed and will not change unless I get new information about our building aid or some other piece of information that I could actually recalculate. But at the moment, this is what remains. Here's our budget, and it's currently the current approved budget for 23-24, as you can see, and the proposed budget, which is a draft, the first draft, the 24-25. You'll notice it's a 3.5% increase on the budget to budget. That's obviously going to come down based on what Dr. Harney and I have been talking about with respect to the entire state aid package. And we want to, obviously work that number down. But this is the initial rollover, if you will, going from the current year's budget to a proposed budget for next year. This brings all the things we know and love about the district forward, moves people up on the salary schedules, all of those things. So that's what you see. And then, of course, I got input from all the administrators back in December about other things that they might wanted to add, particular initiatives that they wanted to be put in the budget. That's all reflected in that first draft that you see there of the 24-25 budget. And when you compare it to the current budget, it's up 3.5%, 3.57. You see the arrows that line up with general support, pupil transportation, and debt service. Those are the codes that I'm going to review tonight. At this presentation and the next three, I kind of break the budget down into small pieces and discuss it. And it's not really as important about the numbers per se, because they're going to change a lot between now and April 16th when we adopt the budget. But it's the what's actually funded in those various function codes. So that's what I'm trying to show tonight, and I will explain the general support, the pupil transportation, and debt service. I'll leave the instruction, the 2000 series budget codes for the next two workshops, and then we will have covered the entire budget from that point of view. And a school board should really see this. It varies from district to district how they approach the budget development process, but in my mind, a board should see this at least once a year to have an idea what's involved in the budget. So the 1000 series is general support. These are codes that are from the Uniform System of Accounts for school districts. So we just don't make up budget codes. We actually have to follow a prescribed method for creating budget codes, and some of this is done by the state. So 1000 series budget codes are all general support, 5000 are all transportation, 9000 are all debt service and employee benefits. This is the anatomy of one, and as you can see, there's a 4-digit code. It's called the function. In 1620 means that it's building maintenance and custodial. That 1620 is the same code in Buffalo, New York, as it is throughout the state, and it means custodian and building maintenance. So this facilitates the collection of data, aggregating data by the New York State Department of Education when they look at all of the things that we ultimately have done. So it all lines up, if you will. The object code is a 3-digit code that tells you the type of expenditure it is. If it begins with a 1, it's a salary. If it's a 2, it's equipment. If it's 4, 8, it means textbooks, etc. We're required to follow this position. In terms of location and program, this is a 2-digit budget code. That's local to our district. So districts can do whatever they want in terms of location codes and program codes. But the initial first 4 digits of function and object are prescribed by the Uniform System of Accounts. So now you know everything you need to know about a budget. These are the ones that we're going to discuss in a few moments, all of these functions. And we're going to start with the budget function, which is Board of Education. Now, just so you know, going across, we have the budget function, the description of what that is, the adopted budget for 22-23, the actual expenditures for 22-23, which were audited, the adopted budget for 23-24, the proposed budget as it stands right now for 24-25, whatever dollar change there is, and whatever percentage change there is. And the percentages go up and down, and they change a little bit here and there. What's important is in the comments is what we really fund in this particular area of the budget. So you get a better idea of what this is all about. And that doesn't change. No matter what happens to the numbers, these things do not change. So that's an important part of the exercise, if you will, in the development of the budget itself. So 1010 is Board of Education. And that's true here. It's true in Buffalo. It's true everywhere throughout the state. 1010 means, in a budget, means Board of Education. So here we have the mandated training, meetings, in-service workshops, professional memberships, contractual services, supplies and materials, board docs, all the things they need to be board members. And it's important to note that they do not get any compensation. They only get the psychic rewards and the rewards of serving their community. for service on the board. 1040 is district clerk. And every district in the state is required to have a district clerk. And in this particular case, we have one person, she will remain nameless at the moment, is our district clerk. And in this particular area of the budget, we budget for supplies and materials for the clerk to live out her responsibilities to the board, legal notices and things like that. 1060 is district meetings, and that's the clerk obviously runs everything needed with the district budget vote and the trustee elections, which includes equipment rentals, advertising, legal notices, and things like that. There's no bodies in that. There's only a body in the district clerk spot. Okay, 1240 is chief school administrator, which is Dr. Harney's office, and everything he needs to run his office, and one clerical support member, which is part of his office. 1310, yours truly, the business administration office, so that we have myself and 5 staff members in the business office that handle accounting, payrolls, purchasing, employee benefits, contractual services, supplies, materials, and things that we need to deal with in terms of anything we involved with bond counsel or financial advisors. 1320 is auditing services, and here we have to hire and use external auditors, internal auditors, and claims auditors. We have basically a 5-year contract with them, and this is the increase here is just basically what's built into their bid specs, if you will, each year, so we have an idea. 1325 is district treasurer. It's another position that every school district in the state has to have. They have to have a superintendent, they have to have a clerk, they have to have a treasurer, and they need building principals. Other than that, those are the only positions required by law, if you will. So we have a treasurer. It's a stipended position, and this person does all of the treasurer's reports for the board the entire school year. She also has other responsibilities within the business office. And then 1345 is a purchasing agent, also a stipended position, and someone that handles all of the bidding and reviews of purchasing to make sure that everything we buy is on either a state contract or a government contract or has been bid in some particular way, so we are careful about how we spend every taxpayer dollar. 1420 is legal services. This is, again, no employees here. This is the Ingham & Smith, our general counsel, and some other legal firms that we have to work with. Again, every school district has to operate with a legal services for sure in this litigious society. So we're no different than any other district in that regard. The increase is basically, I'm just trying to align it a little bit more with what we actually spend. In terms of 1430, which is the personnel office, we have the salary of our director and 3 full-time equivalent professional support staff, and they handle professional memberships, advertising, with BOCES, certifications, all the things necessary to run the personnel operations, a very complex area of the district, and you have to make sure that everything is handled very perfectly when it comes to personnel. And 1460 is records management. Again, we're required to keep certain records a certain amount of years, like purchase orders have to be kept 6 years, but payroll has to be kept forever, and things like that. So we follow those rules, and we have one individual who works a little bit with that on a part-time basis. 1620, operation of plant. Here we have our director of facilities, 1.5 FTE clerical support, and 32 custodians who run all of our 5 buildings, district-wide equipment, utilities like gas and electric, cleaning supplies, materials increase reflects higher costs for goods and equipment and services, if you will, and of course some salary adjustments. 1620 is maintenance of plant. This is where we fund our maintainers. We have 9 of them in the district. There are plumbers or electricians or guys who have skills like that. And of course, equipment rentals and BOCES health and service we charge here. The decrease is basically a result of adjustments, to more accurately reflect the actual expenditures. 1622 is security. We have 1 full-time security individual, and all the rest are hourlies and all have backgrounds in law enforcement, if you will. So, and that's true of many of the districts around here. We also have it includes their supplies, their radios, the batteries for the radios, and things like that within this particular area of the budget. 1670 is central printing and mailing. There are many things that still cannot be done electronically. We have to do hard copies of certain things that we're required to do. So this is basically taking into account the fact that we need to have postage. We need to replace our folding machine and our other postage machines and so forth. So that's basically where we account there. 1620, central data processing. We have a tech staff of 5 that includes our technology manager, our network specialist, computer technician, help desk, etc. These individuals are all helping us tonight, as a matter of fact, make sure we live stream this correctly and have everything ready for our meeting. The increase is essentially just salary adjustments because we recently settled a contract with them. 1910 is insurance, like anything else. And if you notice, all of these codes are operational. They're all, running the district, if you will. And like any big business, we have needs for accountants, for legal counsel, etc. We're no different, and insurance as an example. This includes our property and casualty insurance, autos, errors and omissions, national flood insurance for our New York State, by the New York State insurance reciprocal. And 1981 is BOCES administrative charges. Now, this particular charge, we have to pay for BOCES for we're a component of Eastern Suffolk BOCES, which means they exist to help us. They do not raise taxes, BOCES. They charge fees to component districts, of which we are one for Eastern Suffolk. So this is our fair share of their administrative costs and their facilities. If we didn't buy anything from BOCES, and we do, believe me, they're a wonderful service, and we spend probably $5 million a year on BOCES services. But if we didn't, we'd still have this charge. Every district has to pay their fair share of their being a component of BOCES to service them. So overall, when we get to the end of these 1,000 series, it represents about $9 million of our budget, and it's up about 3.4% overall. Moving on to the 5,000 series budget, again, it's district-operated transportation, contract transportation, and BOCES transportation services. Whoops, I just moved ahead quite a bit. So, district-operated transportation, you'll notice that, for example, is increasing specifically. What happened there was we're down a driver, and now we have 7 drivers. We have right now a transportation director, which is the title is going to change a bit, but right now I'm just calling it that for argument's sake. But one person is our lead person who runs the transportation office, and we have 7 full-time drivers and a half-time monitor. And this includes district-operated vans, gasoline, bus repairs, DOT inspections, and those kinds of things. We're going to be looking at reorganizing this office. We're working with civil service to get the correct title, who will be leading the office, and we'll continue to maintain our drivers. But that's the initial increases for the fact that we were down a driver. And because we were down a driver, we had to use contract transportation, which we spent more than we budgeted because we were down a driver. So that's sort of self-correcting, if you will. There's a good chance that the contractual transportation services, which are our contract service buses, will be able to adjust that number down a bit in the process of looking for places to cut the budget, because we pretty much have, by hiring the driver we now have, we don't need the contractual services company to pick that up. And then some BOCES transportation services, which they provide to us, we're just anticipating that we're going to use them more. Overall, this is about $2.6 million and up about 9%. And lastly, the employee benefits and undistributed debt service and interfund transfers, the 9,000 series budget codes. So here we have our employee benefits, and as you can see, overall it is up 8.64%. That includes district portions of retirement systems, the TRS and ERS, health insurance, Social Security, workers' compensation, life insurance, you name it, we have it. Obviously, health insurance has gone up. Individual plans by 6%, families by 7.5%. FICA maximum has gone up. All of those things have to get worked in. Obviously, I can look at that area when we look to try to cut the budget to sharpen it as much as we possibly can. When we finished our audit of our last year's budget, we had spent over 99% of our budget. So you talk about a very razor-sharp budget. That's what we try to develop. We try not to ask for $1 more than what we need to run our district, and that definitely shows proof of that. In terms of debt service, that's where we pay our bond issues and our energy performance contracts that we borrowed money over the years. That's going up specifically because in this year's budget, we had to budget for the interest on the new energy performance contract, which is currently in process right now. If you see in what happened in the high school parking lot or what we're doing over at Sylvan and things like that, are all related to the energy performance contract. So in this year's budget, we had to build in the interest. In next year's budget, now that we have the interest in it, we have to build in the first principal payment, which is $586,000. So that had to go up no matter what, because we are obligated to pay that money now that we borrowed the $10.5 million, which is part of the entire project. And lastly, we have interfund transfer. $500,000 is going to be continuing, or right now anyway, until we might have to cut it or reduce it, is covering our capital projects, transfer to capital, and 110 is funding for our summer special ed program, where we spend, that's about 20% of our summer special ed costs. The other 80% is picked up by the SED, but we have to still budget for it. I increased that a little bit, but we may have to go back and visit that later on. Overall, this represents about $27 million of our budget, and is up about 8.36%. In terms of history, I like digging this information out because it's really important. Over the past 14 years, you can see what our budget-to-budget increases have been. And if you look at the tax levy increase column, the allowable tax levy limit was what we could have raised taxes by. And the number to the left, like for example, the number in parentheses is the allowable tax levy. And the number to the left of that is what we actually levied. So the board has been trying to stay below that if they could, and it's a worthwhile thing for us. Again, we don't want to overburden our constituents if we can help it, so we try to do the best we very can in all of those. And you can see they somewhere around a 2 and a 3 is where budgets and tax levies tend to end up. This is a pretty impressive average of our 14 years. The average on the budget-to-budget increase is at 2.36, and tax levy 2.84. And you think of that number of years, and it spreads it, you average it out, it's pretty decent. Again, we're going to have to, at some point, come up with a revenue side to this budget. So once you decide how much you're going to spend on the budget, you have to figure out where the money's coming from. Obviously, tax levy is our biggest source, and that's controlled by the tax cap, but it is still our biggest source. And hopefully state aid, ultimately, when all the dust settles, maybe we'll get a much better package than a reduction in our foundation aid. But that remains to be seen. There's a lot of machinations going on in Albany till they get a final number in. But hopefully that'll work out to our advantage. And then we have some other sources of revenue and appropriated fund balance and so forth. But the takeaway from this is that whatever you decide that you need to budget, you have to come up with every dollar. You have to be in complete balance. This is a scenario, but it's based on the 3.57 budget to budget and the 3.91 tax levy increase that we're allowed under the cap at this point based on the calculation that I've done. So this just shows one example, but we're going to be coming down on the tax levy percentage increase and the budget to budget increase as we continue through the process. But this gives you an idea. You can see tax levy of $61 million, state aid at $18 million, all other revenues, appropriated fund balance, and so forth. Gets us to basically cover the entire budget to budget. Okay, and on February 6th, which is the next one, I hope you all come to that, because this is the biggest audience I've had from what I can think of in making a presentation like this, we'll review the 2000 series budget codes, which are all instruction, and then updating on anything we know about state aid. We're going to look at some all other revenues and certain other things, that reserves and so forth. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Frontario. Any trustee questions? Any community members have any questions about the budget? Thank you so much. Oh.
Thank you.
Ms. Connie? Hey, we got one, Mr. Fronterio.
I just wanted to say thank you. I know how much goes into all of these presentations, and we all appreciate the Budget 101 education that you give us. Just a couple quick questions in terms of timing. Obviously, we have lots of moving targets, and Dr. Harney went over at the beginning, there's some push and pull up in Albany until they get their final numbers, but how many aid runs do you usually get?
How many aid runs?
Yeah.
Well, probably,
2 more?
there's a good, well, certainly once they start the process of negotiations, and as soon as the state says, I think we've got a deal, they'll do the runs for us, but they're probably not going to see anything until something significant happens in Albany. Dr. Harney, would you like to chime in on that?
Yeah, probably what I would say, Ms. Connie, would be, I don't think you'll see anything in this 30-day amendment period. I don't think you'll see anything there. I think the first inclination you'll get on anything is when the one-house budget comes out, which is mid-March. Again, that's not necessarily an aid. That's really just more of where they are, what they are asking for all of our districts. So that's probably the first time we'll get a first idea of what it could be. And then we're waiting until the final budget.
And sometimes the regions used to come out with their plan, which is the regions themselves, but it was always much more generous and usually never really got involved in the negotiations part of it.
And then,
What's interesting is for the last 2 years, really, definitely last year, is there really wasn't any negotiation about the finances. It was about all the other policies within the budget proposal, right? Because over the last 3 years, the whole piece is, and many districts did very well with this, was the meeting the foundation rate, right? Restoring all the foundation aid. So there was really no debate about that, up in Albany. It was more about policy. This year it has gone back to, that's why I said it's reversed to about what it was 8 or 9 years ago, where it's becoming more of, what we're seeing now is typical of 8, 9 years ago, where you had the governor's budget, and then you had the one-house budget, and then they'd meet somewhere in the middle. So that's more typical. And there's actually less policy in this governor's proposal, so it's the opposite of last year.
Right. We're back to the good old days of fighting over money.
fantastic. And speaking of money, this is just a small part of your presentation, but can you just talk about the return to taxpayers on the field lighting? Can you just explain?
Yeah, I skipped over
what
that
is?
because it's in my first estimate, but we had a field lighting project we had from available funds. It was $1,011,700 project that we had set aside for that project, and we have about $58,000 unspent funds that at this point I was just showing as a possible return to taxpayers, but we could maybe use that money some other way, and it's still in the final iteration of the budget. I may remove that, but I'll check with legal counsel to be sure I can do it exactly that way. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other trustee questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on to the consent agenda, are there any items the board would like to remove from the consent agenda and place on the regular agenda? Not hearing any, can I have a motion to approve consent agenda items G, H, I, J, K, and L?
So moved.
Ms. Conley, second.
Second.
Ms. Pignataro, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to the 2 regular agenda items. Can I have a motion to review the first reading of policy 6650, claims auditor, 6660, independent and external audits, and 6670, petty cash accounts, and the last one being 6680, internal audit functions?
So moved.
Ms. Conley, second. Ms. Saron, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. And our last regular agenda item of the night, can I have a motion to approve the deed and transfer for the library parking lot?
So moved.
Ms. Pignataro, second. Ms. Saron, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Open up to the community members for any new or old business. You want to just come to the mic? How are you?
My name's Danielle Pinheiro, and I'm from Bayport. So my daughter is currently in the YMCA UPK, and she loves it, by the way. She's very, very happy, excelling. She attends the morning and aftercare there. She will be attending Sylvan Avenue Elementary this fall. And I recently learned from other parents in the district and in her class that the My Kids program doesn't start until 7:20 a.m. That time is very inconvenient for many parents that are in need of morning care. So we were wondering if there was any way that we could open the My Kids program earlier at 7 a.m. so that more working parents can make use of it.
Don't have the answer for you right here.
Okay.
So what we'd have to do is, if you wouldn't mind touching base with Mr. Haas at the end of the meeting, just give him your name and the information,
Sure.
and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
And then he'll follow up with you. All right, so I don't know it, I don't have the answer for you right now, because there'd be a number of things we'd have to look into.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that question, though.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other community members? Not hearing any trustee new business? Can I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Johnson, second by Ms. Pignataro. All in favor? And just one last thing before everyone goes, just want to let you know our next board meeting is February 6th, and it will be in the cafeteria. It will not be in here, it will be in the cafeteria on February 6th. Thank you guys so much. Have a great night.